Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. If you're just joining us for the first time, it's an honest and sometimes raw look at addiction and recovery. I'm Randall Carlisle, and my co-host is Rachel Santizo. And Rachel is famous for wearing a different t-shirt every single day that has a message on it. You've got to run out of shirts sometime, but tell us about what you're wearing today.
Today, I'm representing Ruth Ginsburg, and she was a huge advocate for women's rights and gender equality. So I felt it was appropriate to definitely.
She passed away recently, and she made such a mark on the U.S. Supreme Court as a liberal justice and fighting for a lot of the things we believe in at Odyssey House. So,
and she was the second female. So,
hey, yeah. I have a way that you and I could have a lot more fun doing these podcasts. There was a story yesterday that came out that says podcast studios are now a Las Vegas attraction. Wynn Resorts announced that it's investing $3.5 million in that will include building out a podcasting studio in the Wynn Las Vegas lobby.
Maybe we should reach out to him, see what is.
Well, can you imagine being in a glass enclosed booth in the lobby of a giant Las Vegas hotel? It would sort of go against the grain of what we're talking about, sobriety and recovery and everything, but.
Or would it? It would actually show that rawness as to what happens when you're an active.
Yeah, this is how it all started, folks. Look out here. These people are going to be seeking recovery. By the way, you can catch the podcast visually on YouTube and the audio version of it on iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you get good podcasts. And we're one of the most watched podcasts with thousands of hits every week, thanks to some of the guests that we have, because it's just fun and educational hearing stories of people who were in the depths of addiction and are now recovered. And I think it gives hope, and what we hope is that it gives hope to everyone, right?
Right, and it really is actually all, we should give it all to our guests, right? It's their stories and their vulnerability that makes this show successful, so.
Yeah, it's not your t-shirt and it's not my charming personality, right? Well, maybe.
When it comes to me, maybe a little bit, but.
All right, we have a great guest today that you and I both know and have known for a long time, and his name is A.J.Collette. Are you there, A.J.?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right.
You know, I was thinking, you know, usually when we have people on, they have a story of their, I hate to generalize, but your bad days and your good days. And I've only known you as a good guy, but it hasn't always been that way, has it?
Well, I like to think today that I'm inherently good and that people are inherently good. Okay. But I made bad choices and I destroyed my life by fire once upon a time, yes.
Can you tell us about that?
So essentially, I mean, you want me to just tell my story here? Is that
Sure.
So I was born to a teenage deaf mother in Los Angeles, California. She didn't know, she knew who my father was, but he wasn't stepping up to be a part of my life. And so she accused him of hurting her and therefore conceiving me. So I was kind of born into this drama, right? But I was also born into a Christian home, a devout Christian home. And so I spent the first 4 years of my life with my mother in a Christian home, being mostly raised by my grandparents. When I was 4, my mom met this guy and she fell in love with him. At this point, my mom's like, I don't know, I think she was 22 or 21. And she fell in love with this guy who was also deaf. So sign language is my first language. He was deaf and he was from Israel, but he wasn't a practicing Jew. When they met, they would go to clubs and they would do things. And they decided to get married because she got pregnant with my sister. Well, as soon as they got married, the tables turned. Orthodox Judaism became the thing. Because my mom and him were married, I was forced to convert to Judaism. My name was changed overnight from AJ to David because he felt that AJ was a Christian name and there should be no elements of Christianity to me. And so he essentially wiped out my identity by age 4, what identity I did have. And so this went on for 10 years. Over the course of 10 years, we were Sephardic Orthodox Jewish. We ate kosher, no meat and milk on the same plate, going to temple on weekends and on high holidays. Friday through Saturday night, you couldn't turn the TV on or drive a car or do laundry. All the food had to be pre-cooked because it was the Sabbath, right? And so there was all these elements that came into play. I was enrolled in a private Jewish school, and I didn't want to be there. So I began to act out. And I was acting out all the time. A story that I remember was in 3rd grade. I was called up to the chalkboard, and when I got up there, I looked back and I saw the teacher's purse, and there was cash in it, and I stole it, right, to go buy snacks out of the vending machine.
In 3rd grade?
Yeah, in 3rd grade. Yeah.
Jeez.
So I got caught, and I got expelled in the 3rd grade from the school. And it was this thing, this like source of so much shame for my former stepdad, right? Like that I shamed him I embarrassed him in the family. I brought shame upon the family. That's like a big thing in that culture. And I was a young kid, and so that got really, really deeply ingrained in me. Yet somehow in all this, I really just wanted his love, and I wanted to respect him because I didn't have a father figure. So even though he tormented me, I still just wanted to make him happy. I was expelled for like a month, and my mom tried to put me in a public elementary school. We were living in North Hollywood at the time, and he wouldn't have it because that would bring more shame to the family because I was a Jewish boy going to a Christian school, and they couldn't watch me there. And who knows if I would eat kosher there or if I would break the rules, which I would have. And so he went back to the elementary school, the private one, and basically begged and pleaded with the rabbi to let me come back. And the rabbi let me come back on one condition, that I have a psychiatric evaluation and receive medications. So within a week, I am seeing some doctor in Santa Monica that was on our HMO insurance, and he's got me a prescription for Adderall and Ritalin. And these were the terms and conditions for me to return to school in the 3rd grade. If you look at I wish I had him here today, but if you look at my school photos, my annual school photos from 3rd grade to like 6th grade, there's like a dramatic weight loss difference. My eyes are black, and I was just unhappy, right? Because I was on drugs. I was essentially on meth. And the other thing was that, like, the whole school knew, because they made a big deal about, the teachers would make a big deal about, go get your medication. And I was the only one that got medication because no one else did, right? So I was abnormal, and I stood out. At age 13, at this point, I had a little brother that was born, and my parents at the time were fighting, and they were like on their last ditch attempt for their marriage. And so they had this great idea. Let's just pack up everything and move to Israel and never come back. So we did. We packed up everything. And then we moved to Israel. 19-hour flight, I think it was. I was 12 and a half, I think. We get to Israel, and within like 2 days of us being there, like it's a new place, right? Like I went and explored because it's cool. Israel's beautiful. But I was young, and I was confused, and I was scared. And I wanted my grandmother, who I hadn't seen in almost 10 years. And so like within a week of us getting there, my former stepdad and his father came and picked me up with a bag, didn't tell me where we were going, and they dropped me off at what's called the yeshiva. It's an all-male boarding school. And they dropped me off there and like basically threw me to the wolves. They didn't stay with me to like get me acclimated. They were just like, here you go, figure it out. You can't come home. And so I was there for, I don't know, a few weeks. I got in a lot of fights all the time. Like I beat people up every day and acted out, and they just blamed it on me being this psycho kid, this American that didn't belong. So that was like a theme. That was even a theme for me, just to kind of go back real quick. In the elementary school I was at, most of these kids were like the kids of rabbis, or they were like actual European Jewish individuals. And I was this Mexican kid from LA that was converted, and everybody knew it. So like I've always been the outcast my whole life. But to flash back forward, I was at this yeshiva, and I came up with this need to escape. I was like, I got to get out of here. But there were these gates, and there was like not a security, but there was like an office at the front, and there was no way to do it. So I found this huge fire extinguisher, and I literally, right when everyone was going to get dinner in the chow hall, I let off this fire extinguisher on this back like alleyway and like smoked it out, and I jumped the fence and ran. Felt like I was in like some army movie, right? And so I spent the next 6 hours or so at a bus stop begging for a ride back from the Israeli Greyhound. I remember I spent the night there essentially on a bench. And finally, one of the bus drivers saw that I was just a young kid that just wanted to get home and barely like knew where he was. And so he gave me a ride. I spoke the language fluently at the time. So that helped me. We got back to the house. I got dropped off at the house, and my mom she looked distraught. Like, she'd significantly lost weight. They didn't tell her where I was. They just said, don't worry about it. Your son's fine. And so she doesn't know what happened to me. Right. Like, anyway, so that was rough for her. And so quickly, like, her motherly instinct was like, well, we need to get out of here because bad things are going to happen here. So let's get the kids and go. And so we tried to leave the country, and the Israeli government wouldn't let my brother and sister leave because of the lineage. The way it works in the Middle East is whichever parent has the blood for the child, that parent has the say. And so my former stepdad was like, no, my kids aren't leaving, but you can send your son home. But my kids are staying here with me. And so they were trapped, right? And my mom didn't want to leave them behind. So she put me on a plane by myself. So now I was 13. I was on a plane, 19-hour flight, not knowing what I'm getting into, just knowing I'm going back to see my grandmother, who I hadn't seen in so many years. Not knowing what my life was going to be like, what the rules were going to be like, when I was going to see my brother and sister again. And that was, I don't know. I don't remember like a whole lot about that flight, but looking back on it, I must have been really afraid. I got back to America. My grandma picked me up, and like that, my name dropped back to AJ. I didn't have to wear that thing on my head anymore. I didn't have to eat kosher. I never had to like obey the Sabbath. So this entire identity I created for the last 10 years that I was really, really like into, because I was trying to make this man happy. And there was even points during those 10 years that he convinced me to hate my family, my Christian family, because he wouldn't let me see them. And I believed him. I was like, yeah, they're terrible. They're terrible. And so I've invested so much in this period of my life, this decade, that overnight is done. And so we were in South Central LA, South LA, in a city called Gardena. We arrived. I didn't know who I was, and I was surrounded by gang members. So naturally, I joined a gang. Like, why not? What else am I going to do? Grandma wanted me to go to church, which I did to make her happy. But like, I'm this young, angry boy that needed something, and I'm seeing these people outside that are violent and they're fighting, and they're going through what I'm going through. Or at least that's what I thought. And so I joined a gang, and it was hard. They made it really hard for me because most of the other members of my former gang were like, grew up in it, right? They had sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins. Like, they've been doing this their whole life. They were destined to do this. I was this little Mexican white boy, right? That used to be Jewish, but God forbid, I'll never tell them that, because that's a whole other can of worms. But I'm this new person that just moved to the neighborhood that no one's heard of, no one's going to vouch for. Like, but I want to step up. So they made me go really, really hard. They made me go above and beyond to earn stripes. I mean, the neighborhood that I grew up in, or at least the neighborhood I was a young adult in, age 14, we all had guns, right? They wouldn't let you use them because they don't know if you'd be down enough to use them, right? But all of a sudden you have 4 people come drop a gun in your lap and say, go run and hide it. You were expected to do it, or they beat you up real bad. And so that was kind of like the culture I immersed myself in from age 14.
How did you have to earn your stripes? Just placing a gun, or did you have to do worse stuff?
No, so eventually you got to use it, Randall. That's the expectation in at least part of the neck of the woods that I'm from in LA. You gotta shoot somebody. You got to earn your way in that way with blood. There's no stealing a motorcycle or carrying a gun or selling drugs. Like, that may work for some gangs out here, and that's okay. That's not my business. But like, people die really young where I was at all the time.
And when you joined a gang, is that when your using started? Was that kind of in that world?
No, no, like I was around it. The other thing is that like the gang I was from was really militant, right? And so like while everyone probably did drugs on the low, it wasn't allowed. It wasn't like, you know, you get beat up for doing harder drugs. So everyone drank and smoked weed. So I started drinking when I was barely 14, 13. I started smoking weed the same year. And I would just do that all the time. I got into harder drugs when I was 16. I needed money. My family was kind of like not aware of what I was doing, but they were done giving me handouts and I needed to make my own money. And so I was working construction, and doing construction, I got exposed to cocaine. And then I would do cocaine on weekends, but that was it. And then I met a girl, and I got her pregnant with triplets, actually. And she was young. I was young. I think she was 14 and a half and I was 16. And so like, who knows if her body could have even handled having 3 babies, but I wanted them because I thought, you know, having a kid would take me away from the life. I'd all of a sudden grow up and be this mature man if I had children, which is ridiculous. But that's what I thought. And so I wanted her to have the babies, but she ended up getting an abortion, and it destroyed me. And so then like a week later, I met a girl who sold meth. And so I started doing meth. And that's how that went for the next 3 years. But during the like next few years of me doing meth, the crimes that the crimes I committed against persons became more often. There was more often victims in my crimes. Robbery. I used to rob people a lot and beat people up a lot. And I just became more angry. And I started to develop this like mob mentality chip on my shoulder where everyone's supposed to be afraid of me because I earned it, right? And I started earning tattoos and tattooing the back of my head when I was under 18, right? Like going all out, really, really seeking attention. But I think underneath that, I just wanted to be loved, but it was showing up in such a way that like I just wanted to die because of the decisions that I was making, the things that I was doing. I'm shocked to be standing here today. You know, I went to prison for the first time when I was 18 and a half for an armed robbery. I was drunk and at the beach, and the buddy I was with tried to rob somebody for cash, and they started fighting, and then some good Samaritans tried to step in and stop him, and I made them all lay on the ground. And then one thing after another, it became an armed robbery situation with a high-speed chase for 5 miles in Torrance, California. So that I ended up my first going to prison for the first time in 2009. And from 2009 to 2008 to 2016, I was in and out of prison. You know, I got out my first bid.
AJ, was that all in California?
I did all my time in California. I've done quite a bit of county time here in Utah, but I did my state and federal prison time in California.
How in the hell did you get from that to Salt Lake City, Utah, and doing what you're doing now?
So, funny story. I actually found my recovery here in Salt Lake. I was evading a situation that happened in Los Angeles where I had sold drugs to an undercover cop. And I was on the run. And so I came to Utah because my mother had eventually come back to America. That's another part of my story. But she had come back when I was younger. She moved to Utah, invited for me to come with her, but I was loving the life I was living, so I turned her down. But she'd already been here for about 10 years or 8 years. And so at age 23, I ran from, or age 22, I ran from California and came to Utah with a backpack. And my intention was to stay for a week or two, you know, eat some good food at my mom's house and just kind of lay low, put my ears to the street and find out if anything came of that case or not. I got here, and as soon, like my mom said I could come over, but she didn't tell her husband, and her husband didn't condone my behavior or my lifestyle. And so as soon as I walked in the house, he was like, no, you have to go. And today I have a lot of respect for that man. Me and him actually have a really, really amazing relationship. But at that time, he was doing what he felt was best to protect his household and to set a boundary for me. And that was putting me out on the street. And so I had a backpack here in Utah, not knowing where to go. So I went to the extended stay. I was high on meth and heroin within like 24 hours, already making, or, you know, networking with people. And within 7 days, I got caught with a firearm. by Cottonwood Heights Police. They caught me with a firearm, and I got indicted to a federal prison sentence. So they flew me from here back to California to do my federal time at USP Victorville. That's how I ended up here, Randall. I was never supposed to, they have that saying, right? Like, come on vacation, leave on probation. That's literally what happened to me. I came here and I got stuck. When I got out of federal prison, I couldn't leave Utah because I was on probation here. So my grandma, during all this, her and I have had a codependent relationship, and we work on it till this day. I can say in my recovery that I'm an independent man and I have my own family. And my grandmother and I have learned to heal those wounds. But back then, she enabled me to do so much, and I took advantage of her equally. And so while I was in federal prison, she decided to move to Utah so that I would have a place to parole to. So I got out in 2015, and I was in Ogden. I was high the night I got out because why not? It's what I've always done. There was no reason not to. By this point, I was already using IV drugs. I started using IV drugs in 2010 in the state penitentiary. I went hard as soon as I got to Ogden. I met another girl in treatment. I was at an outpatient class one day for probation, and I met a girl, and we started getting high together, and we started hooking up, and she got pregnant. And that was probably the darkest 9 months of my life because she was an IV drug user, and she refused to stop using. And I didn't stop using, but I went on this like savior trip where I needed to like spend all my waking hours minimizing how much she can use and watching her and beating up her drug dealers and not letting her get more drugs. And if I found drugs, I'd take them and I'd do them, which was okay for me to do, but she couldn't do them. So I was really sick. It was a really dark part of my life. And we had a really toxic relationship. She was physically violent with me, and it was a dark, dark place. My daughter ended up being born like 8 weeks early and spent the next month, I think, in the NICU. She was tiny. She was high. The levels of the cutoff levels they found in her hair was like 4,000 for methamphetamine, which is an astronomical number. And DCFS got involved. And that's what got me to Odyssey. I wanted to go back to that thing I said, like, I thought having a kid would make me not get high anymore. Right. And so like, while I was on this savior trip and minimizing how much she was using, I was creating this plan for myself to taper off, which no real addict can do. I'm sorry. Not as much drugs as I was doing. It's not realistic. It's not my lifestyle, but I was going to taper off. And by the time the baby was born, I was going to be done and I'd be ready to be a dad. However, the baby came 8 weeks early. And with that, I was doing a shot of meth inside the hospital room while she was being delivered. Like, so I don't remember it. I remember her birth, but I don't remember the emotions I felt because I was high, DCFS got involved. I landed in Odyssey, and my first round through Odyssey, I think it was more for the state and for DCFS and not for me. I was doing it for other people. I still picked up a lot of tools, and I learned a lot of things while I was here. I love this program. I love this house so much. But I can honestly say my first go around was me doing it for other people. And in so doing, I rushed through the program within a year. I think it took me just about 12 months. And the reason I had to get out quick was because my DCFS case was going to close. I needed to prove that I could be stable and have housing for my daughter, or I was going to lose custody. And I created this scenario where like, I needed to go do this. So help me meet my needs is what I was telling my therapist. And, he let me go. I left Odyssey in April 2017. I had my final hearing for my child custody that early fall. And I walked into the hearing, and my kid's mom this entire time had been in and out of prison, still using drugs. She hadn't participated in the DCFS services. And so we get there, and I've got my letter from Odyssey, and I'm thicker and strong and, healthy, I should say. And we walk in there, and I have my daughter at the time. She's living with me full time. And we walk in there, and the guardian ad litem, which is the attorney for the baby, DCFS, DCFS supervisor, and I think the district attorney, every single person unanimously said that I should have full custody as the father and that the mother's rights should be terminated, just based on like how we did our services. And the judge looked at me and said, you know what? I agree with them. However, due to new statutes, I cannot terminate her rights and not yours. So either both of you lose your rights or neither of you loses your rights. And I was like, so what does that mean? I mean, regardless of all the things that she hasn't done to prove that she wants to be a mother, what does that mean if we both have custody? He said, you'd have to give her visitation. And that means overnight weekends. And I was like, so I lost my shit. And I started creating a case. Now, already in that moment in the courtroom, I knew I was going to go relapse to punish myself and to punish her and ultimately to punish my daughter who didn't deserve it. Right. But I was like, I got so wrapped up in my resentment and I didn't use my tools and go check in or process with someone or reach out for support. I just sat there and I stewed on the fact that I had done everything that I needed to do and she had done nothing. So there's the injustice of it all. So now I'm going to go get high. So I relapsed. I got high one day and they DCFS took away my daughter and terminated my rights immediately.
So AJ, going from all of that trauma, identity, the gang relations and stuff, to today, now you've had 5 girls,
Yeah.
right? Like you're the father of 5 girls. Like, how is it for you today?
Well, actually, I have 7.
Tell me more.
You have some powerful sperm.
Yeah.
Not anymore, man. I got fixed. I'm done with that. Best $50 I ever spent. Best copay I ever spent. I lost custody of Patience, my firstborn, and then her sister. I lost custody of them too. They're with my aunt in Idaho, so I still see them. There's an open relationship, but I let them parent. I don't try to, it's finalized. Like I'm not going to get them back until they're adults and they want to come back. And then my wife and I have 5 kids, 4 of which are my stepdaughters, and then we have 1 baby together. So I do have $5 in the home.
And we've only got about 2 minutes left. You are now, you went through a wonderful program that we all love, the bakery, right?
Yeah.
And now you're at Odyssey House doing what?
I'm the support staff supervisor over Lighthouse and Annex facilities. So I also run the upper house group. So I deal with the navigators and discoveries, the clients that are on their way out of treatment. I facilitate their groups 3 times a week, while also hiring and maintaining a part-time staff schedule, and also a little bit of everything.
Okay, I should have used the name Flourish Bakery. We're gonna focus one of our podcasts on that, but that helped you with your recovery as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, they're an amazing program. I got the tattoo, man. That's a part of me that's never going to go away. I have tons of good things to say about them, and I look forward to hearing your podcast with them.
Your story. We're sitting there listening to the whole thing about a Jewish stepfather and going to Israel and escaping and flying back by yourself at age 13. And it's like a movie,
I guess, yeah, it'd probably be a good one or a good book.
It really would. Why don't you write one?
Yeah, so I've got to finish my statement of change first. I'm working on an assignment right now. I'm about a week away from being done to come back to Odyssey House, present it to receive my actual graduate status.
Super. And for people who don't understand Odyssey or how everything works, somebody with a story like yours and a background with yours is so powerful with people who are new to recovery. Can you just sort of describe that process briefly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about reaching out to the newcomers as they come in, identifying what their struggle is, and not being above or below, but getting on the same level. I think stepping into that client's shoes, and remembering that I was there too. That I've been there. To maybe not exactly the same story as theirs, but I have a story too. And ultimately, both of our stories landed us here in Odyssey House. And I went through Odyssey House, so I have something to offer. That's the perspective I always try to take, is stepping into their shoe or their other shoe, right? And being in the same playing field, I think, is the most crucial piece of empathy you can give to a newcomer coming into the program.
Let's close with one thought from you. If there's somebody out there who is dealing with addiction watching this, why should they come into, not Odyssey necessarily, but why should they get help? I want to make sure I say this right. My worst day
in recovery, my worst day today, alive, sober, is astronomically a million times better than my best day with drugs, guns, women, like the whole life, that entire life. Like when I was at my top, when I thought I was indestructible and everyone knew me and everyone wanted to be with me, and everything was at the tip of my fingertips, my worst day today is still better than those days. It gets better.
Boy, is that
Yeah.
put. Thank you so much, A.J.Collette. He is coming to a novel or a movie nearby sometime in the next 5-10 years. I mean, it's a great story. Thank you for sharing. What do you? Yeah, you had a look on your face, Rachel, and I did too. It's sort of like, what? You know?
I think it's incredible, AJ. I think that you set a precedence, right? Like you were a baker, you're a father of you're a father of 7. You have, you're in a supervisor position, and you had the courage to stand tall, to go back to graduate and complete something that you originally started. And so thank you for being able to be that leader on the show and say, hey, you can change your life around, or you can lose your identity, but then you can create your own identity and what is better for you, And so I really value and appreciate that.
You are an amazing man, AJ, and it's been my pleasure to get to know you over the years. So thank you very much. And thank you for watching another edition. This is our 73rd podcast of Odyssey House Journals. So we'll see you again next week.